So, welcome to the LawyerFair Daily Podcast. It's Andrew Weaver here, CEO of LawyerFair, coping with a little bit of man flu, so I'm apologising in advance of whether my voice is coming across in a slightly different tone. But listen, anyone who has even a passing interest in legal services will know that this is a space undergoing significant change, and let's face it, not before time. So, when I discovered a piece of technology that's coming into this dusty old sector from the States that had a product, and I'm going to quote here, it's a product based around cognitive augmentation and tackling the entire contractual genome. I do hope Jason will correct me in a moment when we talk about it. But it was something that I thought was particularly exciting, and that's why I am thrilled to be joined by the CEO and founder of Counselytics, Jason Gabbard from New York. Good morning to you, Jason. Good afternoon to us.
Good afternoon, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Not at all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the kind words.
Not at all. Well, I'm fascinated and I'm really interested. I mean, Jason, one of the reasons I do this podcast, frankly, is entirely narcissistic and personal. I love to speak to guys like you who are really at the edge of doing some exciting stuff in the legal space. So, Jason, I hope I've captured one or two key words there that is the basis of Counselytics, but please do explain a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I think cognitive augmentation really sort of says it all. When I started this company, I looked into the area of innovation as with respect to the law, and I saw really three kinds of companies. And one we all know about, which is the guys and the gals that are sort of pushing templates on the world, and their mantra is that if we'll all use their templates, life will be much simpler. We'll have many fewer negotiations, and we can all save a lot of money. And that's an interesting idea. I think it works for the sort of consumer-facing part of the market, but it doesn't really work for the part of the market that interests me and the part of the market that we're going after, which is large enterprises. Because those large companies still have lots of institutional knowledge and expectations, and they will, for the foreseeable future, continue to heavily negotiate and heavily structure their agreements. The second area of innovation in the sector really is the folks that are out there trying to reinvent the law firm model, and you see this with firms like Axiom, which I know is pretty active in the UK, and then Up Counsel is a startup here in the U.S., which may already be in the U.K., and if not, certainly has sights set on the U.K. And that I think is a valid approach and interesting, but something that I've had exposure to in the past, and I'm not intellectually that interested in sort of going forward. And then the third, and for me the most fascinating pocket of innovation in the market is folks that are really trying to apply deep technology to the practice of law, and that could take any number of iterations. It could be focused more on case law research and or argumentation when it comes to legal writing, or it could be folks like us that are deeply focused on sort of text analysis and data inside of text, and that's what Counselytics is. And when you say cognitive augmentation, the idea there is that despite all the talk about AI, we certainly are not in the era of thinking machines. We are in the era of very sophisticated software that can do some quite impressive feats with data of all types, and text is just one more type of data. And so when we started this company, we said, it's basically man-machine symbiosis. If we can use this technology in a very intelligent way, then we can make lawyers smarter, faster, more efficient, more profitable, and ultimately happier, because they're not spending their time doing this incredibly sort of rote data processing work.
Mm-hmm. Jason, sorry, go on.
No, that's so. In response to your lead-in, I think you captured a lot when you said cognitive augmentation. So that's what it is. It's a company that's focused on the world of sophisticated commercial agreements. And we build technology that helps people discover and analyze important data inside of those agreements. And, in many cases, that looks like a person that's in an office looking at a fresh contract that comes in from the other side of the negotiating table, and they want to quickly analyze that and understand how closely it fits with their institutional expectations of gold standard. So, does it have an indemnity with a cap? Is the governing law in the UK? How does the waterfall work in the sophisticated partnership? Stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Well, what I was going to say was actually, I'm a relatively simple fellow, Jason, and some of this, cognitive augmentation sounds really exciting and really sexy, but it took me a little bit of time myself just to kind of calculate what that means. And I have to say, anybody listening who wants to kind of have a look at a pretty good example of the savings that are involved in this process, or the value that Counselytics can bring, should look at the website, because I think the efficiencies diagram that you've got there, Jason, is really useful as a very visual example of how this data will help companies. I've got one in front of me here where it states efficiencies in single contract analysis. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff when you visualize it in that way, the savings that you can provide.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know if you captured the point of that second graph, but in a lot of these organizations, there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pretty sophisticated agreements saved on their databases. And historically that looks it looks pretty gnarly, because people take those files and they have expensive document management systems that are really very much like the old junk drawers that we had in our kitchens and our living rooms, where you just sort of throw everything in there, and when you need to find it later, there's really no organization, and it's very difficult to find your earplugs or your scissors or whatever it was. But when we think about sort of analyzing contracts and then document management for future retrieval, we think about doing that in a much more intelligent way, where no longer are you storing files by somewhat meaningless, kind of hierarchical structures with name and subname, but you can store and sort and retrieve files based on important legal concepts and data points. So if you want to go in there and say, show me every lease I've signed in the say you're a retail store operator, show me every lease I've signed in the last 2 years that permits me to vacate the premises and continue paying rent without being in breach. And if you are a Boots or a retailer with hundreds or thousands of stores, it's very difficult to track information like that. And with Counselytics, you can do that. And it's historically, you would have to pay lawyers to spend hours of time sifting through complicated documents to find those data points. But with Counselytics, you can do it in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, well, that absolutely, and your website absolutely illustrates that very clearly. What's been the journey for you guys, Jason? I know you closed the seed round in April, but what's been the journey, and where do you think the next few months and perhaps a year or two is going to take you?
Good question. I don't pretend to have that level of sophistication or wisdom to predict where I'll be in a couple of years, but I tend to think in kind of shorter sprints, and I think for us the next 6 months looks like we are onboarding currently a couple of huge multinational conglomerates with a couple of different new products that we're just about to release into the market. So I think for us, it's to build great relationships with those institutions and make them very happy, and then take those new products that we're just about to release and then start to resell them to similarly situated companies. Though it doesn't have to be multinational conglomerates. We're happy with any customer, but I think we're focused on great quality relationships, good customer feedback, and good iterations of our product. I do think in the next 6 months we'll probably introduce our first client in the UK, most likely in the kind of the world of finance, or the kind of, for us, the Wall Street world. I think we'll continue to recruit great engineers, probably add 1 or 2 more PhD level engineers to the company in the next 6 months, and most likely close another round of financing.
Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, the news that you're coming over to the UK is particularly interesting, and I wish you well with all of it, frankly. But obviously, when you come over to the UK, we'll be making some noise on your behalf, because I do think it is absolutely fascinating. And as you mentioned, the kind of using deep technology into the practice of law. Goodness me, what an exciting proposition that is, both with Counselytics and other services that are out there. Jason, I know the hours you're working at the moment are phenomenal, and so I really do appreciate you giving me some of your time this morning. Thanks again, and good luck with everything.
Andrew, we're honored to have your attention, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I owe you a pint when I make it over to the UK in September.
Well, those that know me know I never turn that offer down. And also, when you've made a great success of Counselytics, Jason, I do want you to help sort out my junk drawer. So any movement in that direction with the technology you're developing will be warmly appreciated by me and my wife, I suspect.
Thank you, sir.
All the best, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.
And to you. That was the LawyerFair Daily Podcast. Thank you for listening. There'll be more tomorrow.